Hello! Today we're going to try something that's very new to me, and it features our lovely new friend, this 3D printer. Now he's a bit of a distinguished gentleman. He's about 4 or 5 years old, so I'm not really sure how well he prints, but I suppose we'll find out along the way. I do think he deserves a nice alliterative name. Something like Percy? Timothy? Theodore? I don't know, but I'm very open to suggestions. So considering this is going to be my first 3D print, I do think we should keep it nice, simple and small, just to ease into it. So before I can get to the printing part, I kind of need something to print. And luckily the sculpting bit is a bit I'm comfortable with. Here's the concept art that I've got going. I'm not really sold on this little rocket ship just yet. It doesn't really fit my aesthetics and perhaps it's a little bit too simple. I don't know, but I reckon we'll figure it out along the way. So to Blender we go. So like I mentioned before, my heart just wasn't sold on making a simple rocket, even though my brain was telling me to chill out. Apparently I just don't like making things easy for myself. All joking aside though, I really wanted to make something that felt like me. I feel like the rocket sketch didn't really have the cutesy style that I usually go for, and it didn't really have a story either. But my thought process with this is if I just get started, the ideas will come later. One technique you'll see me use a lot when I sculpt is box modelling. Basically, you just start with a simple cube and you build it from there. Now the wing itself wasn't really a super complex shape, but by adding a few loop cuts I had more vertices to play with and could tweak them into the shape that I needed. Then I added a quick subdivision modifier to smooth everything out. Although I did end up deleting the wing later down the line, it was still a fun little exercise. I got to mess around with making some irregular shapes, and it meant I could also test my sculpting skills just a little bit. This is the part of the sculpt I'm really excited to share with you because I had a light bulb moment. By accident, I left the proportional editing on and ended up warping the exhaust shape. And honestly, I'm so thankful I did.
We don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents.
Oh, thanks, Bob. The new shape looked just like flower petals and suddenly I couldn't stop thinking about making a floral inspired spaceship. How cute! Something I realised is I didn't really think about how to sculpt with 3D printing in mind. When the model only exists in Blender, it's so easy to get away with mistakes. You can just hide them with adding a shape or being clever by changing the camera angles and whoosh, sorted. Bizarrely, and I really don't know how, it all ended up working out in the first attempt. Otherwise I would have ended up like Homer trying to smash all the puzzle pieces together, like an absolute chaos queen. But more on that later. Even though I wasn't really following a sketch, I could see the floral spaceship perfectly in my mind anyway, so it didn't really matter. Sometimes though, it's really nice to check out what's already out there for a bit of inspiration. And that's exactly how I fell down the internet rabbit hole for 4 hours. Silver lining though, I found some really cool things. Just like this wild orchid villa concept, and the very gorgeous lotus inspired temple in New Delhi, India. I'm just going to make a comment on the fact that it's kind of fascinating that humans take something so delicate and naturally beautiful and then just scale it up and make it into this huge man-made structure that completely dwarfs you when you walk past it. There's got to be some sort of irony in that, surely. I mean, maybe that's how flowers feel when we pick them. Or maybe I've just eaten too much cheese. After I finished sculpting the rocket, I started thinking, what's a spaceship without a little friend to fly it? So of course I had to make a sweet little alien to go with our sweet little ship. I wanted to keep him fairly simple to sculpt, print and paint, so I stuck with some pretty basic shapes. The little sketch I came up with actually reminded me of a little blueberry and I thought it was perfect because it kept that natural floral theme going. For the little ears, I took inspiration from Shrek. I've always thought his ears were a little bit funny because they're so tiny compared to his head. There's something just so charming about it that I couldn't help putting on our alien friend.
Okay.
To keep the floral theme going, I thought it would be a really cute idea to give our little alien friend some leafy accessories just so he matches his spaceship. I do think those tiny little details might be a little bit fiddly to print, so instead I'm going to sculpt them with clay later. Real life clay? The absolute scandal of it. Alright, so now that we've finished the sculpting, it's time to move on to the actual scary bit, the 3D printing. Let's get started, shall we? Honestly, I'm quite surprised by how well the test prints went. There are some little defects and layer lines, but I reckon once I scale it all up, it'll all send out. I feel like I've had some really good beginner's luck. As you can see, I am a little bit clumsy, hence why there's a broken leaf. ASMR. But look how sweet these two pieces look together, and they fit really well. I did have one casualty though. While I was pulling off the supports, our poor little alien lost a leg and the other one's barely hanging on. Plus, there's this bizarre line running through the front of its body. After doing a quick Google search, it turns out the line is just a seam where each layer starts. If I just rotate the model in the 3D printing software before hitting print, I can push the seam line to the back and hide it a little bit easier. And just like that, the line's gone. Originally, I had planned to print the body of the rocket as one piece, but 2 whole days of printing? No thank you. I didn't really want my printer to, spontaneously combust. So I split the body into 3 separate parts. Then it was time to start all the prep. Now considering I was going to spend hours sanding the pieces, I figured I might as well be comfy. Now hopefully you're not judging my outfit choice too hard, but also, look how cozy I look. Even I'm jealous of myself. One part of the prep work you really can't forget is putting on a good base coat. Now I could have been lazy and missed this step, but I didn't really fancy watching my paint peel off. I think I may have just run out of my beginner's look. Whilst I was prepping and sanding our little alien friend, I accidentally snapped him clean in 2. There's been a moider! Genuinely though, I think this little bugger is cursed, because even after I glued him back together, I dropped him again. Instead, I just decided to take the loss and reprint him. To help me deal with my little series of unfortunate events, I moved on to something a little bit more calming, the painting. I found myself pretty mesmerised by how 2 different colours can blend together to create something entirely new. I know it's just basic colour theory, but honestly it feels like witchcraft to me and I find it really enjoyable to watch. I feel like I've had a pretty interesting mental journey with this project. At first, I was kind of obsessed with making sure everything was super smooth and perfectly finished. I felt like I had to hide those layer lines because machine-aided creating has a bit of a bad reputation, although I do think that's changing. If I did decide that I wanted every piece to be completely smooth, I think I'd spend weeks sanding, and honestly I don't have that kind of patience. But also, I think it's pretty cool that I get to use 3D printing as another medium I get to explore as part of my creative practice. After all, it's not really about the tool itself. It's about the person who wields it that brings their imagination to life.
I got the power.
flower bud and the leaves look so lovely together, but I do feel like the bud's missing the nice texture that the leaves have gotten from the paint seeping through the layer lines. I reckon we should fix that. Add a little bit more depth. I mixed up a bit of a darker pink and then used this interesting fan-shaped brush to dab on some patches for the texture. I did realise the pink might have been a little bit too dark, so it wasn't very subtle. As the acrylic is water-based, it meant I could thin it out to create a bit more of a translucent paint. As you can see, one little layer helped to blend the colour out a lot more smoothly whilst keeping the texture I was looking for. Now, I'm not really a painting expert, but after watching countless illustrators, I've learnt that adding shadows makes everything really pop. On both the petals and the leaves, it really brought out that 3D look and added some really nice colour variation. We're back to the little cursed one, aren't we? I decided to stick our little alien friend onto the end of the pencil so I wouldn't manhandle him too much or accidentally drop him again. To be fair, the entire time I was a little bit fearful that he was just going to fall off anyway, but luckily the curse had been lifted.
Woohoo!
Oh, by the way, something I've learned about myself. I may be halfway decent at sculpting in Blender, but I have as much grace as an elephant when it comes to sculpting in real life, especially when it's on such a small scale. Thankfully though, making the leaves wasn't too hard. I just had to roll a ball, pinch one end, and then draw a line down the middle, and then wham bam, chicken and ham. You got a leaf? And then about 5 minutes later, you have a leaf fringe. Can we just take a moment to thank Pastoria for making the eyes stick out on the 3D print, rather than adding clay blobs afterwards? It honestly made it so much easier to paint, especially considering how little this guy is. I think if I tried to make the eyes out of clay, they would have been asymmetrical, and that would have bothered the heck out of me. Well done, Pastoria, for using your last 2 brain cells. I grabbed the thinnest paintbrush I own and put my entire focus on making sure the eyes were perfect. I'm not sure if you can see it, but my hands were absolutely shaking. I really didn't want to mess it up at the final hurdle. That would have really sucked. I used a dotting tool to give him a little mouth and a sweet little nosy wosy. Boop! Then added the final touch of some rosy cheeks. I think it's time to check out the final piece. Thank you so much for joining me whilst I turned a Blender sculpt into a 3D printed real life thing. If you enjoyed the video, please be welcome to drop me a like or subscribe. I truly enjoyed making this 3D print, so I'm really excited to make another one. Now I'm off to Pinterest to find some more inspiration. Bye-bye!